I think artists are our heroes.
Yes, yes, yes.
We pay dearly for our artistic lives, and as Lady Gaga was saying, like most of us harbor those thoughts. Most of us are running from anxiety and depression. Most of us have this trauma within, and I thank us that we show everyone else how to deal in such a productive way.
It's my personal theory, actually. I always get a little bit angry when people say, oh, so a lot of artists have been traumatized and are dealing with anxieties, so this must be the prerogative for being an artist. That is something that makes me angry. I think art is a way, like when you were traumatized, you have a different outlook towards the world. And for me, it's always been, okay, so the world is like this, and I don't like that, but apparently the world doesn't like me, so I'm gonna like show my middle finger towards the world and just go and make my art. So I think that is where a lot of drive for myself comes from. And I know a lot of people who are traumatized who are not artists and who actually lack that resilience, Lady Gaga style, um, because they don't, yeah, they don't have that survival instinct, as you put it.
Right.
So I think artists are a lot better equipped to deal with the trauma they experienced.
Completely agree. And that's a good point because, when I notice the population, several thousand singers I've worked with personally, and I see these common threads, not every one of them is traumatized. And I write about that in my book, in that some people are just good at singing. And so, and I know it's a crazy concept, but if you're good at something, you tend to do it more,
Yeah.
and people ask you to do it.
Yeah.
So there are plenty of singers out there that are well balanced chemically. So it divides up. There was a stall in the writing of my book because of that, and it's because I always assumed every singer was creative, and that's not necessarily the case. And so
Interesting.
there are plenty of singers that just love to go to choir practice and they read the notes on the page and they sing those notes and they have a very social, engagement with everybody there. It's a very wholesome feeling and they drive home complete. It's like we just had a get together, we sang these songs, boom, that was great. They didn't create anything but the sound out of their mouth. They participated, in other words. And
Mhm.
I'm not diminishing that in any way, but then there are the like Lady Gaga who create songs and then sing them, and they're both called singers. And so those that don't create anything but love to sing, and then those of us that love to create and then end up singing our creations, uh, there's some miscommunication between those two. And so and I was guilty of that to begin with. I was in my early days teaching was only attracting singer songwriters and people that were writing their own material and singing it. So I just assumed everybody that sings is creative because that's the population I was working with. As I got to be more known as a teacher, I was attracting some of who I call just people that are good at singing, and
Mhm.
they wanted to elevate those skills. And I would try the same things that would work on creative people, and it wasn't as effective on these people. And I was like, well, I wonder why these, people over here. So it was a challenge to my teaching approach that I had to broaden my skills as a teacher
Mhm.
to include all that sing. I now get to recognize where. That's why the history of somebody to me is so important, and to sort of open up the lid here and see what's making them tick,
Yeah.
because all people that sing are not creative, and all creative people don't sing, and all creative people aren't traumatized, and all traumatized people don't become creators. So there's many layers here, and we have to acknowledge those layers to really get to the heart of what it is that we can help with somebody. And sometimes my advice is like, you don't need me, you need to sing more.
I would actually love it if a vocal coach said that to me. That'd be awesome.
I've said that to many people. And there is a culture of teachers,
Yeah.
and that there is a process that you should plug into. And I've always been a lone wolf, renegade, whatever. I'm not like that. So, countless times I've said to people, I was like, I like your singing. I think what you're doing is great. I think you're on the right path. I don't want to mess you up by filling your head with rules and things that I think you're coming to me from guilt, that many people will come to me because they never took a lesson and they are now successful, so they figure they might as well,
Hmm.
fill in the gaps. And I'm here to tell them that it's like before there was before there was teachers, there were singers, and so and there were good singers. And
Yeah.
so therefore it's only if you have a desire for something that seems elusive that a mentor can help you guide there. But I don't believe the statement, oh, you can always be better. You could always improve. Of course you can, but that's not for someone else to say. That's for the individual to say, meaning to define better.
And we're back to the concept of perfectionism and perfecting something. Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't want to impose my bias on what I think is good singing.
Mm.
That's I'm always asking people if what they're doing is intentional or unintentional, because that's
Mhm.
those are to me words that we can talk about. But good and bad or better and best, those are subjective, and that's none of my business of whether I don't have to be a fan of somebody that I'm working with, because I'm just asking them if the sounds they're making are intentional.
Yeah, I like that vocabulary. It opens up a whole different area in my brain. There is one thing that I would like to talk about, and that is it's interesting because when I talk about what keeps people at being the best singer they could be, and it's completely different from what people actually think it is. Because a lot of times I hear I will never make money with my music, and I don't have time for it. And we haven't talked about those two things at all. And I do believe that both money and time are issues that are connected with everything that we said before, with your inhibitions, with your self-worth.
So here's the deal, and I worked a long time with an artist named Amanda Palmer, and she was in a band. She formed a band called the Dresden Dolls, and I watched her elevate from street musician to superstar. And she has a TED talk. It's now 12 million views on it or something, where she said the title of it is The Art of Asking. It's her profound journey of being able to ask people. She came up in the age of, what's GoFundMe and those kind of social media funding
Yeah,
campaigns.
yeah.
And so she basically financed her band and all of her, her artistic uh, journey with patrons. And so in my generation, that was taboo. You formed a band, you scrapped your pennies together, you went into a studio, you made an album back then or cassette and then a CD, but you had something to sell, and then you played gigs and you sold your merch, and that's how you made your money back. Hopefully, you get a record deal. Now you got publishing money. It was like it would elevate that way. It's flipped now, and so the crowdfunding way that artists work now is they come online and they say, I have a vision, and if you'd like to fund my vision, I'll be able to then follow it. And so that was very confusing to me, disorienting to me as an older artist, because it was like, that's not the way we do it. We produce our art first and then we sell it. And so it's flipped on it. In my lifetime, I've watched it flip. And in my lifetime, I've watched social media change the landscape completely. So it used to be the record companies were the filter, and you had to go through them in order to get to the larger public. And now, social media has allowed us access to everyone on the planet, and so therefore, it's completely changed. So those factors of the worth, and this is what Amanda talks about very well in her talk, that just dealing with that self-worth of asking. And I remember it was a struggle for me to ask people to buy my CD
Mhm.
once it was done, just because that taps into are you worth that, $20? Are you worth the fee you're about to charge people? And all the young, voice teachers that I coach, I often say the same thing of you have to charge enough for your worth, so that you feel nervous when you give a lesson, that you're going to make sure that they're getting their money's worth. Otherwise, you're not going to help them. They're not going to respect your knowledge. So there is a monetary figure that comes on worth. Unfortunately, that's how this system works that we are in right now. And until they replace it with something else, that's the way it works. And it's not that we attach wealth to self-worth. That's dangerous. But in the commerce, I've seen plenty of people not respect. If somebody contacts me and gives a gift certificate. So they've prepaid for this
Yeah.
person's lesson. I've seen that be unsuccessful 90% of the time, where sometimes people don't even redeem their gift, and it's because they didn't pay for it. And or when they come to the lesson, I could see that they're not as invested as those that sacrificed their own dollars or their own euros to achieve this. And so there is, I think, a healthy challenge put on that of we put a figure on worth, and it seems evil in some respects, but it also stimulates worth in that now if you wait 3 months having bought very expensive concert tickets and you wait 3 months until that concert, you're going to have a much better time experience at that concert than if you're a VIP and you walk in the back door on a whim. Oh, let's go see Johnny play tonight. And you're standing on the side of the stage and you're watching the concert. It's not as exciting to do that because there was no sacrifice in
Mhm.
that. So that's the worth element of it.
Yeah.
And then the commerce of that is that what I find artists have a very difficult time doing is honing down their craft into a small sliver that is sellable. And so many artists are so good at so many things, as if you're creative, like I wrote a book and I paint and I built the furniture behind me and I did all kinds of things. I'm a very creative person, but if I were to try and sell the furniture that I build, I'd be up against people that only build furniture. And so they would find the flaws in what I built, and it wouldn't have quite the nuance and the finesse. And so I've evolved into a vocal coach, into a voice teacher, and I do that every day, all day for 37 years now. So
Mhm.
I'm damn good at it, and therefore I charge a premium for my time. And in doing so, it take all the questions out of anyone's mind that comes to me. It's like I am just this, and I understand that I can be many other things. I could paint someone's house. I can do this. I could do that. But I wouldn't hire me as a painter because I'm going to be thinking about the voice as I'm painting your house. And so there is this thing called being creative, and then there's this thing called commerce.
Mhm.
And commerce, we look for small slivers. So I like to think of the rainbow, but that's our music collection. And then every person, every artist in there is just one color of that rainbow. And I know every artist thinks of themselves as a rainbow. They're multifaceted, and we are. But in order for a purchaser to make a decision, they have to know that Mark plays blue music, and Charlene plays orange music, and Lady Gaga is red, and Justin Timberlake is yellow. And so when you put all that together, your music collection will be a rainbow. But if Justin Timberlake tried to sing like Metallica songs,
Mhm.
it wouldn't work. And I'm sure he could, and I'm sure it would be decent, but it wouldn't be as good as somebody that only sings heavy metal and lives it and breathes it. And so it's very difficult for artists to simplify down to that single element. But that's what had a discussion about this earlier yesterday, whereas I said to the singer, I said, you can't be a rabbi and a priest.
Huh.
And
Yeah.
so we're all promoting our religions. All of us artists are just promoting our own personal religion, right? And so you have to choose. And so the bigger word is these are people of faith and they're respected. And so when the Ayatollah and the Pope meet, right, and they're both there as the heads of the ultimate, but they're both men of faith, and but they have their brand, if you will.
Mhm.
And it's a weird way to talk about it, but they have their brand and they stick with it.
Yeah.
And so those two didn't argue about religion. They didn't discuss it. They just, because they're both the top of their game. And so when those two big, powerful people meet, it's like all the artists that we see, with the A-listers, when they meet, they're fans of each other. And that's because they're all at their own mountaintop. And there's just many peaks, and they're all on their own personal mountain. And most lay people or amateur musicians will think they need to climb Lady Gaga's mountain. And unfortunately, she owns that mountain. So you can never be above her on her mountain. And there's no need. The point is to make your own mountain and stand on your own peak and wave to her from your mountaintop. And she will respect you and you will respect her for what you've gone through to do that. But that's where and the mountain is money I'm talking about. It's a mountain of money that they make because they've gone through that process of refining themselves down to a single element that's very recognizable, therefore easy to sell, therefore creates this momentum that's disproportionate, to the millions they make and the pennies that, most musicians make. It is disproportionate, but it's because of the level of risk that they endured and the level of exposure that they endure. It's extremely exhausting. And so I never dismiss, I think they deserve the riches they get because there's hell to pay for that.
Yeah.
And so therefore, that's my message to artists, is that refining is an awful process because it feels like we're dismissing very aspects of us. Mm-hmm. But like religion, there has to be this message, this singular message, and almost a branding, if you will, that allows people to recognize it. Oh, there's a Catholic church. Oh, there's a synagogue. I go to that one. She goes to that one. Mm-hmm. And that's where people bond and relate, right? And yeah, everybody is having an elevated experience, but they're doing so by just different cultures. You need to wrap this up, but it's just, again, you think of churches and something as, what began as so wholesome as a religion, which to me was just a way for humans to have a coping mechanism, a survival mechanism, because it was violent in those eras when religion came up. But so, and now these are extremely wealthy institutions. And a lot of people, have a lot of hatred towards it because of that, because of the riches and the negative side of that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pushback on wealthy artists being, celebrities and out of touch and things like that. So it has a potential of growing exponentially like that. But if you look at the origin of it, it was by having a singular message and saying it over and over and over again. And in doing so, people start repeating it back, and then that's what we call a hit song. Mm-hmm. A simple message that we repeat over and over again, and it sticks, it resonates, and I think that artist deserves reward. There is no promise, right? So you're going into an unknown, you're just following your heart, and that's what every artist and creative person does. And it's just, I now in my elder statesman role, I like to tell people, like, you're on a good track, you're heading in the right direction, and keep on it, because when we're being true to ourselves, you tend to find a lot of reward in life.